Alright. Hello and welcome to Plugging Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. Last time, Plugging Along, we tried to finish up our Harvestmath changes so that we could technically release the update during Harvestmath. Unfortunately, there were too many last-minute to-do items, so that release has not yet gone out. So today we're going to take advantage of being late anyway and keep working on Harvestmath updates for the Festival Buddy 2 plugin. As always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions. In chat, we have people already chatting. Sugosi says, hello. Hello! Behind enemy line says, just hit level 100 today for the first time ever. Nice! Welcome to Gondor-ish, possibly. Yeah, I have a few characters who have gotten that far in this story, but I've spent a lot more time below level 100 than I have above level 100. Phil Slesky says, hello, hello! Welcome back, long time no see. Yeah, well, we had September off for lots of different things. That was kind of our summer vacation, so it's good to be back. Okay, as you can see, I still have some extra life widgets up on the screen. If you have the disposable income to do so and feel like donating money to children's hospitals, then there are some LOTRO-related rewards that you can get for your generosity. I'll put some links into the stream chat here. Oops, I'm going to have to spell that right. Little Redhead has already reached her goal of $750. So I would encourage you, if you do decide to donate, feel free to find one of the members of the Standing Stone Games teams, or really anyone. It's all going to a good cause to put that donation in for. I'll be doing Hobbit flips on screen or something in celebration of anyone who does donate during the stream. But like I said, we want to make sure that you're in a place where you're able to do these donations. So please have the disposable income before you start giving it away. Okay. We are standing in Hidbolt because the festival's done, so can't really do a lot over in the festival areas. So I'm going to be probably standing still for a lot of this, and we'll be looking at plugin code rather than running around in-game. Okay. Nope, we just want to remove all of those. So, what are we working on? We are working on Festival Buddy 2, and specifically, we have a few more to-do items to do with the Harvestmath or Harvest Festival quests. For instance, notice we are throwing an exception now because something is assuming that it can perform arithmetic on a parameter, and that parameter is nil. So that's the first thing I'd like to look at is we have a couple of different parts of the code that are trying to figure out what map to display. And during Harvestmath, that depends on what day of the festival it is, or rather, which of the 5 possible days that we're on for the Harvestmath map. To see what that would actually look like, we're going to come in here, change the Harvestmath ID. We'll say today's day number 1, and there we go. So that's our generic day number 1 map. And then if we come on in for a specific one, say challenging wheat, we only want to see the challenging path, and cheat of the wheat, we only want to see the cheat path. But if you're not on either of those, then we'll just go ahead and show the generic map. And let's see. Yeah, okay. And then it hides if you're not on one of those, but okay, cool. So the problem is we don't have a centralized way to deal with, hey, what map should we be loading in here? Whoops. I clicked the wrong thing while I wasn't thinking. That's what I wanted. Yeah, so what do we load in here? And so a naive answer would be, well, just a map that shows nothing could be an answer. Or a map that says, hey, please let us know what the ID is. Bims asks, hello, on this plugin, how hard would it be to make it resizable and have it increase font size at certain breakpoints? Realize that is just a UI thought. So resizability is a thing that I have in mind, and we've been working on bringing it into play on several different plugins. So, for instance, on the Minstrel Buff plugin, here let me hide some of this. On the Minstrel Buff plugin, this main window feels a little small, even on my 1K display, and so for people with 2 or 4K displays, I could imagine that would feel very tiny indeed, because it's set up in absolute pixels because there's an image underneath all of the controls of the plugin. But what we can do, and this is, for most plugins, this is pretty easy to just slap in on top of whatever system is there. A few plugins, it just doesn't work very cleanly, like the Prime bags, Prime loot maybe. But for this case, because we're not doing anything tricky here, we can just go ahead and scale that main window up however big we want. Now, I actually think the way LOTRO does the scaling is impressively not blurry for what it's doing, which is just blowing up a small image into a much larger image. But it still looks pretty reasonably good. And so you can do that with an arbitrary window with the Lua plugins for LOTRO. You can just say, hey, let's just take that original and just scale it up. And as long as you're not having to deal with clicking or moving things around a bunch, it's fine. Like it looks good. If I go ahead and activate it, we can see stuff gets drawn there. Awesome. Bims asks, so almost like creating a core window resizer library for generic use and plugins might be nifty. I feel like it's one of those things where every window you apply this to could behave a little bit differently. And so you want to approach it with thoughtfulness. But it is very possible to do some resizing in some cases. The melodic interlude window, we also put that together. So where even is that? There it is. So the melodic interlude window, which just pops up and says, hey, you can click one of these things and heal someone else, even though all of your heals are self-heals right now. And those are small buttons and they're not very noticeable, but hey, they're really noticeable now. And so I actually run with this on like ×2 size, I think, just to help get my attention. And be like, oh, there's a thing I can do. I don't run the main window that big, but I do run the main window about 1.5, I think. That looks about right. So this is a thing that is doable. So if someone's actively doing active development on a plugin, this is something they can do. Let's take a look actually at what it takes to do that. Okay, so if we go ahead and move over to the Minstrel Buff code, and we know that was an option, so we can go into options and search for scale. Awesome. And so when that scroll bar is changed, what do? We get the value of the scroll bar. Cool. It's going to be some number between 1 and 100 probably. And we're going to treat that as being just a flat scaling between 0.5 to 10 times the normal size, something like that. In fact, let's take a look at that again. So we say, yeah, we'll have a minimum of 0.5 and a maximum of 10, and that corresponds to a minimum value of 50, no, a minimum value of 5 and a maximum value of 100 for this thing. So we can see we set the minimum for 5, maximum for 10, and under the covers we know we've just shifted the decimal point over by 1. So this is just a multiply by 10 or divide by 10. Super easy to correlate the two. So we're going to get a value out of here, maybe 32, and we know that that means we want the scaling to be 3.2 times the normal. Awesome. Okay. We have some thoughts about a practical minimum, a practical maximum. That was just design notes for myself, but you know, why not? So I'm working in 1K resolution or 1920 by 1080, and so things that look normal for me maybe look really tiny for someone on a 2 or 4K monitor, because they have way more pixels. Okay, so we update the label first of all. So we can see as we're scrolling this around, that label is updating, what it displays there. And we need to figure out what we mean when we say 3 times. So we need to know what's the size of the screen and what's the actual width, and therefore what's the proportional width. Then we need to set that setting and then tell the window to redraw itself. Okay, so we're looking for something called proportional width, and in here we're looking for redraw. Really? Let's go into buff window. Okay, so when you redraw, you have the display width, you know what the default width is, and I'm guessing that's a fixed number. Oh, okay, so Minstrel Buff, this is why it's not just an easy slap-in solution, is Minstrel Buff has a variable-sized windows depending on which theme you're running in, but there's a default width. And then if you have a theme, we can override that. Cool, okay. And then... That's funny. Oh yeah, main window width. Okay, yes. So we're setting main window width. We're getting that setting here. We're multiplying it by... so we're storing a proportional thing, like 5% of the screen, 17% of the screen, that sort of thing. Storyteller says, I wasn't expecting a computer science class in a LOTRO stream. Well, this is Plugging Along, where we talk about making plugins for Lord of the Rings Online. And that uses Lua as a scripting language, and just depending on what problem you're trying to solve, in this case, scaling of windows. So yeah, the question comes, how do you store how big this window is? Because if you're storing it by pixels, then if you change, you have one computer where you're logging in as 1K, you change to another computer where you're logging in as 4K, then your plugin is going to be very different size. And so the thought was, let's store it as a proportionality of the screen. So on this screen, if we're 192 pixels out of 1920, cool, it's taking up 10% of the width of the screen. Vim says, sorry guys, yeah, just digging through creating some of my own plugins and stumbling over some stuff. Totally understand. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. When we store this proportional width, we're storing what percentage of the width of the screen are we taking up, on the assumption that you're switching between displays of the same proportionality. So 1K, 2K, 4K, those all have the same proportionality of width over height. If you have something different, then this might be a bad assumption. Maybe using the width of the screen isn't the right way to go. But it was a simple way to go. And so far I haven't heard too many problems with that. So we say, okay, what proportionality of this screen are we taking up? Basically, the percentage of the width. And then when we log into a different resolution, but the same plugin file, save file, then we say, oh, okay, you've got 4 times the number of pixels, then this window is going to take 4 times the width. Cool. And so the actual redraw code, it's not that bad, right? But you need to know what your base width was so that you can deal with that. The secret sauce here is that we have a set stretch mode. And my goodness, why is it set to 1? Turbine.ui.stretch. Nope. Maybe that's why. Interesting. Is there not a... oops. There might not be a enumeration for that. Let's just go check the documentation. All right. Bring that over. We're going to come on over and check in 2 different places. Nope. Okay. So in control, we're going to look at set stretch. So it's not documented. That's part of the problem. So we're going to come on into turbine.ui over here, and okay, it's not in that documentation either, which makes sense because it's one of those less documented and or hidden functions. Okay, so setting a stretch mode of 1. And we do have documentation. If you're using the Lua extension for Visual Studio Code, or I should say the LOTRO extension, which includes the Lua, then you're going to get information like this. So scaling of stretch mode of 0, no stretching at all. Stretch mode of 1, you take an image and it will scale it up. Bimscala agrees that this is a great extension. Me too. Thanks to Lunar Water for making it. So, scale an image based on the size it had when the stretch mode was assigned and its current size. So, making this work correctly is a bit of a trick, just getting the order of operations correctly. But once you have that in your redraw, you can just call set size with the stretched size, and it knows under the covers what its actual size should be. So when you say set size after stretch mode is set to 1, then you're going to get that scaled image. And it's scaling everything within the controls, so the background image scales up, but also all of the controls within it also are getting scaled as well. And so that includes things like labels. So that's an example. The 100 Deadly Decoy is maybe one... Really? Oh, it uses the turbine files. Fantastic. Well, I guess I should put those back. Okay. So the 100 Deadly Decoy has actual... Where is it? There it is. Aha. Has actual text being drawn on it. So there's a label on there. But again, the scaling is being applied to everything, including the labels. So we get for free the text that's on there, even if it's in label form, not just a part of the image, that gets to be scaled up as well. And as you can see, going down to like 0.5, that's kind of ridiculous on a 1K monitor, but maybe if you have smaller resolution, 800 by 600 or something like that, this would make more sense. Though do note, 800 by 600 does not have the same proportionality as a 1K plus screen. So, okay, so resizing is doable, but when you have more complicated stuff, like when you have the Prime Bags plugin, which has item controls and has all sorts of assumptions about how the thing works, then you just blindly apply resizing to it. It doesn't work so well. So it's very much per plugin specific question. So the real question is, could this be easily applied to the Festival Buddy plugin? Mims says, much appreciate the sidetrack on resizing. Thanks before. You're welcome. So, would it be possible to take this? Because I have been thinking about that same problem of the Festival Buddy window has a fixed size. And that means it's ripe for the idea of doing this resize. Because under the covers, everything still goes in the same position. And it's just in the translation to screen where it gets resized. So what would that look like here? Well, I guess the main question is, would we just do it on the main window? Sure, let's do that. So what we want to do is have rampant theft as an option. So what we really want to do is just go and take everything the Minstrel Buff 2 options and settings are doing and see if we can't just bolt them onto the side of Festival Buddy as a possibility. Cool, let's do it. So we have option window, and this is going to get confusing. So I'm going to put the things we're stealing from on the left and the place we're putting them on the right, maybe. So it's kind of going left to right. So let's grab an options window over here, and we're going to put it over there. I'm going to move stuff around on the screen because we are definitely going to be underneath stuff. I'm going to say that Extra Life is still going on, and if you have the funds for it, please consider donating to children's hospitals. But I'm going to go ahead and hide those two widgets right now because there just isn't enough space on this screen. Okay, so we're going to do that. That can go underneath my head. That's fine. Cool. Okay. So what do we have? We have a main window scaling. Okay. And we want to assume, make some assumptions. What's a reasonable minimum? What's a reasonable maximum? Now, on this screen, I don't think you can get more than maybe 2 of these, top to bottom, maybe. So double this size is a reasonable maximum on a 1K monitor. But remember, on a 4K monitor, you should have 4 times the vertical and horizontal resolution. So where 2 is a good maximum here, 8 might be a good maximum there. Still probably be very silly because it would be covering so much of the screen. But we should consider numbers like 8 times aren't out of the realm of possibility for people with monitors with higher resolution. Okay, minimums. This is already kind of small, but we're not going lower than 0.5. We might do 0.5 just because some people might want the window, but they would just want it out of the way and kind of tiny. So, okay, 0.5 to 10 still seems like a sane set of defaults or a reasonable set of defaults for right now. If we wanted to, we could say like 0.5 to 8, because again, the window being larger than the screen just isn't very useful for me, but maybe for other people it is. I don't know. Okay, and in these options, we need it to go somewhere. Probably closer to the top than in the minstrel buff window. Maybe before the quick guide even. Okay. So, let's figure out where this is. Draw generic options, draw quick guide options. Great, let's put it in generic options. So, we have ignore escape key, awesome. We want, you know what, let's go ahead and make even another function. Draw main window scaling options y. Okay. And then y equals draw main when scaling options y. Then we just need to remember to return y at the end of this, and that allows us to take up as much vertical space as we want, and everything else can just adjust. Okay. So in here, we want to do a label for the main windows scaling scroll bar, but of course name it correctly, or just don't name it. That's fine. And scroll bar. That's strange. That sure seems like a copy-paste error. Great. Cool. Then we can hoist the rest of this. All right, what's that going to look? Okay, we have the main label and then the scroll bar. Great. And I'm noticing that the distance between them's a little rough. Let's actually make that just 20, and then after that can be, we can have that extra 10. And here we're going to knock that down by 10, that up by 10, and we might get something that looks a little bit better here. Great. Those seem more associated with each other. We're gonna run with that. Okay, so the top of these, melodic. What are we doing? Oh, yes, calculations. The calculations are necessary. So we're going to need to hoist all of this and then adapt it to our purposes. Unfortunately, this is assuming an object-oriented style with a self dot that we can use, and this is not doing that for historical purposes probably. That's a good question. Why are we saving it off? Well, we can save it off into options. Okay. So the adaptation of this is already going to take a fair amount of reworking of things. But let's go through it kind of line by line and see what we can do about this. So first thing we're doing is getting the width. Okay, nothing changes about that. Next thing is the proportional width. The current proportional width, we should say. So we're gonna make changes here live. Current main window proportional width. And then the current main window actual width. You know, I'm making these changes. Let's keep reading through. I'm concerned that might be premature. Okay, how are we getting settings in this plugin? Let's go take a look at this. It's just all caps settings. Great. And we don't have functions for doing this, so settings dot, and then let's go take a look at that. Okay, so what we want is probably going to be this main win, something about that. So main win width, awesome. So we want settings dot main win dot width. Oh. Yeah, the current window stores things almost certainly as XY. Oh, we don't have a width. Even better. Okay. So if this equals nil, then set that to what it would be on a screen of this size. So the Festival 2 Windows size, let's take a look at that. Are we in the right one? Festival, okay. Main win set with, stop it, of 300. All right. So that's going to be, I don't like having this magic number here. So what we want to do is store that off somewhere. Now the globals could be a place for it. You know, it's got to go somewhere. Might as well go here. So main window width equals what? 300. Main window height equals something else, 520. Now this doesn't work if you have a variably sized window, but it does work for this purpose because it's going to take a lot more changes to make this window resizable. So temp width here is used in a number of places, which kind of makes me sad. So let's come on back here and see if, how good the find all references is here. And we're going to say, instead of temp width, we're going to use main window width. Actually, let's go ahead and just assign it here. I'm okay with that. Because again, if you're going for a more variable sizing, then it might make sense to just save it off locally with one reference, and then this could be literally replaced with a function call or whatever. So I'm good with that. Okay, so we're using main window width, main window height, and in that case, we can come on back into here and say main window width divided by screen width. So we can set up the proportionality now. If we do not have a width for the main window, then we can go ahead and set it up and then go ahead and save that off right then. This save file doesn't have a main window width, so set it up. So calculate it. Cool. Okay, so we have our proportionality that we have saved, so that now we know how to populate the label's initial text, which says, how big are you? And we can see that here. If we unload and reload right here, then this needs to know that we're at 2.1%, or we're at 2.0%. Times, I should say, not percent. Okay. So We're going to keep working. Actual width equals proportional times screen width. Now, the funny thing is, we're just going to get our 300 back out of here with rounding if we did not have this value. But actually, we can go into our Lord of the Rings Online, plug in data, and come on into Affodil and take a look at the Festival Buddy settings. And we might already see our proportionality in here. Main win. Oh no, cool, okay. This function may not be being called yet. It is being called. We didn't load it. It probably won't load. Yeah, so many errors. Cool, we'll work through those. All right, so the default width we know is this main window width. So the scaled width, we can take the actual width, divided that, and for the default example, we're going to get something that's basically 1 with rounding. Floating point numbers are annoying, but okay. Scroll bars using this. Spell multiply correctly. Thank you. Okay. So main scrolling scroll bar value is that width times 10. Awesome. So for the 1 case, we're going to come out with 10. We're going to set it unit 10. Awesome. So we're doing self here. There is no self. So we're going to go ahead and just store this thing in the options itself. We're going to set its parent to options. It'll be great. Okay, so just bulk editing that. So we make a main scrolling scroll bar label. Awesome. Set the parent, set the size, set the position. The only thing we need to customize here is the format string here. Over in here, we're getting that format string from laying options main window width. Let's go take a look at that. Main window width. Cool. So this format string uses the %.1fx. Oh, sorry, %.1f, and then the x is representing times. Cool. So we want to go ahead and lift that. And we're going to put it into wherever the strings are in this one. So come on into strings. This is Festival Buddy, so there's lots of possibilities here. Actually, there is an options, I think. Options, great. So we're going to go ahead and say, maybe this is hard, but yes. Main window scaling. Cool. And that's going to be a table because we're still doing tables here in Festival Buddy. So English equals this value. And we're scaling a number formatted to 1 decimal place with rounding, and then I think it's rounding. Could be truncation, probably rounding. But it'd be worth double checking that assumption if it mattered. Okay, so we have laying options. We are in options. We want to come into main window scrolling. Main window scrolling. And we need to call get string on that, which will get the current language if it's available or English as a fallback. Awesome. And then we have that same thing we're passing. Cool. And that's actually pretty good so far. Let's go ahead and really, how do I do a multi-select in this? There we go. Let's go ahead and comment the rest of this out for a minute so we can just load something. Awesome. So we can see we have main window scaling, but I'm concerned it's a little bit too close to what it's above, and it also looks indented more than everything else. So let's take a look at both of those. We can see the position is 10 there. We want these positions to be 10 as well then. And we're also going to want to have this booted down a little bit. Awesome. That's a little bit better. We're going to run with it for right now just to keep making progress. But I'd be tempted to, I don't know, have alternating background colors of sections or something as this gets even more complicated. I'm not sure. I'd be tempted to do something about that. Okay. Cool. And we're going to pull that comment also. And then calculate size information will be a little bit more useful of a comment. Okay. Cool. We've got a label. What we don't have is the actual scroll bar. Let's go ahead and get that going now. We can do a lot of this without any changes. We're just going to not deal with the actual change part of it. Let's go ahead and load this up. And we can see main window scaling 1 times, which is exactly what we were hoping for. If we come into the save file, we can see the width is listed as 0.15625. That's a very clean number. And that's exactly what we should expect when we divide 1920 or 300 into 1920. We get the same exact number. So if we wanted to play with that and say, okay, what if it was twice that big? Okay. Well, we have unloaded the plugin, so we're free to change it however we want. Load it in. Now the only thing that's changed is the value of the label and the scroll bar. Nothing is hooked up to do anything yet. I just hit escape accidentally. Don't do that. Okay. But that hooks us up. We have the ability to load this from the save file, and now we just need to know, what do we do when it changes? Okay, so we get a current value, we get a scaled value. So if it was 32, we know that is 3.2. Okay. Practical minimums. I don't even think I need to worry about that. That was just mulling through. Okay, so we need to update the scaling label. And it's going to be the same thing here, where we call get string on that value. Screen width is good, actual width is good, proportional width is good. Setting the setting, that's not so good, but we can copy this over. So this equals that proportional width. Awesome. The only thing we don't have is how to actually draw the window to do this. Everything else is great. So we have the options as we click it. Oh, hey, attempt to index. What do I have? Where's buff window? Oops. Yep, that'll do it. So we need that main window width. Awesome, that'll be better. Great. So we can see, we can drag the bar and it updates the label. That's already pretty cool. Be nice if it did something, but you know, that's coming. So we are at 7.2. We load it back in. We're still at 7.2. Awesome. So that's how we incorporate a sliding scale into the options, where we can effectively have a practical minimum and a practical maximum, and deal with tenths of digits of precision for scaling. If we wanted hundredths, if we needed something really granular, we would just be shifting by, multiplying or dividing by 100 instead of by 10. But the same thing. The scroll bar goes in increments of whole numbers from a minimum to a maximum. So we're in charge of converting that into whatever is reasonable for our domain. If we were doing something more complicated than multiplying and dividing by 10, I would make helper functions. I would say get whatever from scroll bar, or get scroll bar from whatever, and just be passing these things in. But the code's already written, and it's just multiplying and dividing by 10, so because it's such a simple transformation, I'm being lazy. But anything more than a one-liner like this needs to go in its own function. So we can keep track of which direction we're going. Okay, so the last thing we need is we need a redraw function in our main window that will do something reasonable. Okay. Do we have such a thing? I'm guessing we do not. Redraw, we do not. But what does it do? What does the window over here do? We're basically done with the options window. Let's go look at the buff window here. Okay, so what does redraw do? We get some stuff. We get some more stuff. We're saving off stretched window width. Why are we doing that? Okay, so we're doing that because we are overloading. We need to make some notes here. What do we need to do? Okay, so need to overload the get size function of the window. See buff window.lua line 181. Okay. What else is that used for? Oh, good, nothing. That was width. We also have height, and that's also okay. Oh, over at the default get size. So drag bar knows our scaled size. Does this thing use drag bar? It does not. For drag bar. No. Our window doesn't use that. But there are other windows in this plugin that don't that aren't UI.LOTRO.windows. They're just windows, which is just nothing. You have to do all the drawing yourself. So the drag bar is something to simulate what happens when you hit Control / by default. That's a handy library. But for this, we do not need it. So, okay, one less thing to do. Great. We're saving off stretched window width and stretched window height, which we don't need to do. Awesome. You know what? Let's go ahead and start crafting the Festival Buddy version of this. Now, again, this isn't an object-oriented style of programming. I don't know if that's the right way to play it. This is not using the object-oriented mechanism of declaring inheritance and using the self parameter. This is doing object-oriented in a different manner, if at all. So what we're going to do here is say, instead of buff window : redraw, we're going to do main win redraw, kind of scoping it based off of the variable name. Okay, so we do not care about stretched window width, I think. At least we don't care about saving it off. So I'm going to go ahead and say local that equals the display width times, and again, we're getting this setting, so we can come in and just steal how we do that. Okay. So we're going to multiply this out because we want an actual width. We have a default height. Awesome. Again, we're getting those default height things. What we really want is main window width, and we want main window height. Awesome. Okay, so we have a stretch. Again, we're going to just call that local in case it's important. And that's going to be equaling to a stretch window width divided by the default width times the default height. Okay, so now we have the actual size of this thing. Cool. So we're going to stretch the window. Now the window it's not being passed with a self variable instead of just a global variable. W main win parent. All right. W main win parent. And I'm pretty sure that is the thing that we're doing. That is the window. Yep. Okay. Whoops. So we're setting size. These are just local variables. Awesome. Okay. And an overlay window. I don't actually think that matters here. So we have a set size thing. The one last thing, well, not one last thing. Another thing that we need to set stretch mode on the main win. And we need to see what buff window does when creating the main win as far as the saved value goes. It probably just calls the same function, but we need to figure out where that happens. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start with this. And let's take a look. So buff window redraw. Cool. Where else is this called? So find all references. It's called referenced in two places. Awesome. So we can see here that this is that same stuff that we want to lift ourselves. So we have we're actually finished laying things out. So sure, let's go to the very bottom of the layout. And we'll go ahead and say self dot, no, sorry, not self, W main win parent. Set stretch mode to 1, and then W main win parent. Well, it's not going to be that. It's going to be main win redraw. Okay. Well, the other question is, where is this function? Let's go ahead and take a look. Is main win width being used anywhere else? It is not. It's all in this one function. So that's really promising. Okay. So set stretch mode redraw. That should be sufficient, because the redraw is calling set size after set stretch mode has been set to 1. Okay, so I feel like we're closing in on the end here. Let's take a look. Need to set stretch mode on the main win. Yep. See what buff window does when creating main win. Yep, did that. Awesome. Well, let's take a look at this. Fantastic. So if you ever have a plugin that's misbehaving, for instance, it has covered the entire screen, then you can go ahead and type enter and /plugins unload, and just to unload them all. Now that won't actually solve the problem, because we have allowed the window to get bigger than the current screen. We might want to fix that. So let's think about where we would fix that. So again, plugins unload. Well, there's two things. We can come into the save file and say, hey, that width, we're just going to kill it, because that's not working. And then when we load it, we just get a default value here. Okay, cool. And we can actually see this working. We cannot. We didn't hook it up. Okay. Let's get options hooked up here, and then that'll be good. That's just main win redraw. Awesome. Unload, reload. Whoops. That's fantastic. Okay, so that is a redrawing window. But as we can see, there's some drawbacks. First of all, if it gets big, it goes off the it goes outside of the bounds of the main window, and that's a problem because if you try to move it, LOTRO is going to first. As soon as you start moving it, it's going to snap it into inbounds. And we can see I can't go up and down. I can go left or right. And we are at about 2 times. So right here, yes, I'd be able to do that. If we enlarge, no. As soon as I start moving, it's going to be a problem. So Boom says, sweet. Lord Zach says, wow, it's so big. Yeah. And the 0.5 size is also very humorous to me. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we are not wider or taller. Taller is obviously the main concern here. That we're not wider or taller than the window. So when we try to increase in size, we want to make sure we're not too tall. And we also, because this is a window, and LOTRO is going to do this anyway, as soon as you start to move it, it's going to snap it onto the screen. We want to go ahead and, we want to go ahead and call a version of an on-screen function. Now, this is a function we have to write ourselves, but it just says, hey, am I extending beyond any of, am I above the top? Am I to the left of the left? Am I to the right of the right? Am I below the bottom? And if so, move to accommodate that. And with combination of not letting ourselves get too tall or too wide in the first place, that's going to kind of constrain the growth of this window. So, growth. Don't let the slider get larger than the current screen resolution, and growth call an on-screen function after the window resize. Awesome, and that would be the, that's actually going to be in our main window. Lord Zach says, can you also capture events if the player resizes the game resolution? That is very possible to do. Thurlore had a mechanism to do it, and I don't remember what the solution was, but there is one out there. There's I believe it involves creating a control or a window that is set up in such a way that it receives that event. And then it tells the rest of the plugin, hey, this thing happened. But I haven't tried implementing it, so I would have to look it up to see about that. So the worst thing is you would just unload the plugin, change your screen resolution, reload the plugin, and that would work. But it's a little bit much. So detecting the screen resolution change is a fine desire, and we should go ahead and add that to the list. General, detect resolution change, deal with it. Okay, awesome. So let's work those in order. First of all, when we're setting up our slider here, we just set up a naive, whoopsie. Hang on. Okay. When we set up the slider here, we just naively said, hey, let's let it go down to 0.5 and let's go all the way up to 10. But the reality is, this maximum shouldn't let us exceed the bounds of the screen dimensions. So we can calculate that. We can say, in options, we're already doing math. Let's do some more math. Okay. The local screen width, let's get the height as well. Screen height equals term.ui.display get height. Okay. Calculate the maximum the slider should be. And to do this properly, although I can't imagine a screen configuration in which this would be true, we should calculate how many multiples we can go in the width, how many multiples we can go in the height, choose the lesser of the two, and go forward with that. So, let's see. Local max scale x equals screen width divided by, and this is the main window width. Okay. So that's, for example, 1920 divided by 300 equals 6.4. Awesome. And local max scale y equals screen height divided by main window screen height
So same idea. That's going to be 1080 divided by whatever I said that was, 520. 520 equals 2.7. We're going to go ahead and round that off to 7. Awesome. So then we just say local max scale equals max scale x, and then if max scale y is less than max scale, then max scale equals max scale y. Just a basic, this would be a kind of place where you'd use a ternary operator in a C-style language, like the question mark colon ternary operator. Yeah, this is fine too. Or just have a homegrown function called minimum that you pass it to into and you abstract this away. Okay, so we have a max scale that we want to use. So we're going to say that the maximum is the max scale times 10. Let's take a look and see what that does. Okay, so in our options, we can see, oh, that's funny. Why is the thumb so big? Do we set that somewhere? Minimum, maximum. Let's go take a look at what our options are. First, we can start here. Set possibly what a large change is. Large and small changes. I don't know. That's interesting. No. Lord Zach says apparently ternary in Lua is A and B or C. I could see that. Yeah, if we wanted to try writing that, local max scale equals, and then max scale y is less than max scale x and max scale x, or max scale y. I could see it being something like that, but I'd want to play around with it to make sure I understand the implications of that. Because I feel like that would resolve to Booleans. I don't feel like doing an and here, you should get a Boolean out of that. I could see it being a ternary for Booleans. I disbelieve that works without further testing. Okay. Not to say it doesn't work, just I don't believe it. Okay. So what's up with that thumb? We're gonna set a small change to 1. I'm just curious what that would do. Okay. Okay, so the large change, I believe, is what you get when you click in the bar. The small change is what you click when you click on the thumb. I really don't like what's up with that, the width of that thing. Sorry, I'm distracted by a cat who's licking something on the counter. You know we can see you, Kato, right? Jack says their example is to replace print blah with a different print blah. I mean, sure. Let's just plop something in here just for the heck of it. So turbine.shell.writeLine max scale x. I'm gonna first print out the actual values so we can see what's working there. Max scale y Cool. And then as a second one, we're going to go ahead and say turbine.shell.WriteLine. And this is going to be minimum of the two. And we're concatenating in, and this is going to be max scale y is less than max scale x. You know, I called it max scale x, but it should probably be minimum scale. No, it's fine. It's the maximum you should scale. Okay, so if this and max scale y or max scale x. All right, I'm game. Let's find out what happens with that. Huh. Where's x as I put yy? That's entirely possible. All right, let's reverse it and see what we get there. Interesting. Well, we are getting a result. I guess I'm surprised that the result of a Boolean expression isn't a Boolean. And that's probably because I don't have a good intuition for Lua expressions. So Lua Boolean expression. Let's go take a look at lua.org. And my window sizes are all messed up. Okay, the operator AND, according to the documentation, returns its first argument if it is false. Otherwise, it returns its second argument. So what we're doing here, but if this is false, hang on. The operator order returns its first argument if it's not false, otherwise it returns its second argument. Useful Lua idiom is x equals x or v. Which is equivalent to the expression. But why is it? Provided that b is not false. I just don't believe that that follows from what they say up here. Operator AND returns its first argument if it is false. It equates to false. Consider false and nil as false and anything else as true. Okay, but the greater than here should have been false, yeah? I mean, okay, so yes, this comes out with a value of false apparently, and so operator AND returns the first argument if it is false. Okay, so if this is false, we should get false, minimum of the two. So I don't understand why this works, given that this is their text of how it works. Thank you, Joe.
Are you tall enough to be seen?
I'm uncertain. You want to come struggle on screen? I know. You don't like being held.
Okay, probably take a trip though.
Come on. No? Alright, well, you just keep that in mind. Oh, now he's coming for one. Okay. You can both have one. Yeah, he took your spot. Wow, yeah. Kato hates being picked up. She does. This is the worst thing in the world. I know. Alright. But I don't want you up here. Go away. Hey, there, little one. You do not look awake. Okay. Operator AND returns its first argument if it's false, otherwise it returns its second argument. The operator OR returns that, and then AND has a higher precedence than OR. Fine. Okay, so in this case, if it is true, then the AND returns the second part of this, and that goes, and if it's false, and both of these go in. So in this case, if this is false, then this part of that is false, and we get the second half of it. Okay, or if it's not false, otherwise it returns the second one. Okay, yeah. So if this is false, we stop with the AND, we go into the OR, and we get Y. So Y is max. Yep. Okay. Let's go ahead and revert my things here. Yeah, so if Y is less than X, this is false. Then we want X, and so this all evaluates to false, and we get that. If this is true, then we get Y right away. And since Y is true, the OR stops. Okay. I believe it to be true. Cool, thanks for pointing that out, Lord Zach. Okay, so the equivalent of that would be local max scale equals max scale Y is less than and yep, max scale Y and max scale Y. Yep. Okay, and I'm using parentheses just to make sure that the less than gets evaluated before the and does. Otherwise, max scale X and max scale Y would be weird. So I'm forcing that just in case order of operations. And then we know and is higher priority than or, but we could, if we wanted to, also surround that. I'm going to do the idiomatic thing and not do that. Okay. Let's give that a shot. Okay. Okay, so we have a max scale, and we can just use that in the maximum of this bar. However, we're in danger of it being saved large somewhere else. Yeah, let's set that size larger and see if that brings the size of the thumb down. That's just weirding me out. No. Okay. let's actually save off the scaling factor in a variable like we should have done in the first place. Great. And then cool. So if we make that scaling factor something more, yeah, Little Redhead points out milestone skills and travel skill cooldowns are on sale. And Pot in chat says hello, hello. Okay, so just to test this, if we change that scaling factor to 50 and load this on up, we get a much more reasonable thumb. It's the same, everything else. Oh, but the those sizes are no longer right. Okay, so the minimum, no, the scroll bar, the small change, then we would want that to be the scaling factor. No, that's the large factor. That's the large one. The scaling factor, and the small one is the scaling factor divided by 10, or 1, whichever is smaller. So, scaling factor divided by 10, and is greater than 1, and scaling factor divided by 10, or 1. Something like that. Let's see if that works. Huh. Fascinating. Now, the minimum is still not being adjusted. Okay. So we need the, if the scaling factor was 10, we need half of the scaling factor. So scaling factor divided by 2. Cool. That gives us that minimum. That gives us that maximum. When we do clicking on the arrows, we get exactly what we want, and we're doing a full. You know what? I almost feel like it should be more like 0.5% when you click here. I'm not convinced what I just did does that. Oh, that was the small change. Yeah. No wonder. Yes. So now we're adjusting by 0.5% instead of full percent. Okay, so that's doing good. Patine says, "How's it going?" Well, it's going pretty well. We're demonstrating what it takes to do screen window or window scaling of a plugin. So in this case, we're working on the Festival Buddy 2, which I've been thinking about implementing scaling for a while because some of that text is just super small, especially if you start going through if you start looking at some of the really tightly compacted maps like the Haunted Basement. Like if you look at the normal size for this map, it's, I don't want to say illegible, but I'm on a 1x monitor. If you were on a 2x or 4x monitor, probably be very different. And so being able to scale that up and suddenly these things are maybe a little more legible, that feels like a win. Okay, so we have fixed what happens when we create this scroll bar such that the thumb doesn't look stupid large. But the scaling factor is based off of just a hard number, and that's not right. So, scaling factor of 10 produced a reasonable thumb size when scroll bar was 5 to 100. but much too large for 5 to 21. Scaling factor of 50 produced a reasonable thumb. Size when scroll bar was 5 to 21. Okay, so what can we look at this? So the thumb is probably proportional to the number of steps you have between minimum and maximum. So that's going to be 16 steps, and this is going to be 95 steps. And we can also lock our screen accidentally. We can also see that the proportion between them is actually more like 6. So if we know what our max scale is, and we can go ahead and just say local, what is it? Maximum. Scroll bar maximum equals max scale times our scaling factor. Then we already know that the minimum, we want that to be as the scaling factor divided by 2. So scroll bar minimum equals scaling factor divided by 2. So we can do the same math. We can say local step count equals scroll bar maximum. But we need the scaling. We need to calculate the scaling factor such that these number of steps is reasonable. I just like chicken and eggs, but I'm going to keep going with this so I can figure out how it works in my head. Kyle says hello. No, Kyle says sales. All right, there's sales. And what do we have? We have milestone skills and travel cooldowns are on sale. Okay, so the step count equals the maximum minus the scroll bar minimum. Okay. We want this step count. We want a step count of around 100. Okay, so we know we want steps of about 100. So we want this to be 100. So if we know 100 equals scroll bar maximum minus scroll bar minimum, and we know that means 100 equals scaling factor divided by 2. Nope, that's the minus. So we know that equals max scale times scaling factor minus scaling factor divided by 2. We can factor that out. 100 equals the scaling factor that goes into max scale times 1, but it's fine, minus 1/2. Does that make any sense? So if we have a scaling factor of, oh no, we need to go a little bit more because we want the scaling factor then to be equal to 100 divided by the max scale minus 1/2. This feels like nonsense. So what does that tell us though? If the max scale, if the max scale is, so if max scale equals, it was going to be 2.1, it was actually 2.077 in this case, then we get 100 divided by 2.077 minus 1/2. That just seems like it's not going to be correct. Equals 100 divided by, okay, nope. So a scaling factor of 63.4. That actually doesn't seem that wrong. If max scale equals 10, then we get 100 divided by 10 minus 1/2 equals okay, so our naive scaling factor of 10 conforms to this pretty nicely. Interesting. All right, so using some basic algebra, we were able to engineer the formula we need up here. So scaling factor should be equal to 100 divided by the max scale. Now the max scale we can know first, so let's pull that up. And then we know that the scaling factor equals 100 divided by max scale minus 1/2. In fact, I might just take all of this. So if we want the maximum minus the minimum to be 100, and we substitute in what we're going to use for the maximum and the minimum based on the scaling factor, and then we factor things out and then divide through, then we get scaling factor equals 100 divided by that. Awesome. And we can do the same thing here. 100, actually, hey, local desired number of steps equals 100. So what we have is the desired number of steps divided by max scale minus 0.5. And that's it. That should give us a consistent result no matter what scale our max scale turns out to be. Maybe. And we'll put this up here so we know why we're using 100 in our example. Okay, so that's all done. We don't need the step count, but what we can do is go ahead and hoist those up and use them. So set minimum to the minimum, set the maximum to the maximum. Excellent. Okay. I hoisted things, but they depended on other things. There we go. Okay, so gonna save off this information just for myself. Okay, did we break anything? We did not. Okay, so we still have scaling available to us. However, we can safely say one part of this is done. Nice. Don't let the slider get larger than the current screen resolution. Done. Next, we need an on-screen function. Bim says, nice. Yes. We need an on-screen function. Do we have an on-screen function? Well, something does. Oh, I'm searching case sensitive. That's funny. Okay, so there's all sorts of possibilities. This one happens to be in the festival buddy already. Great. That's what we'd like to see. So an on-screen function, super easy. We just say what's the width of the display, what's the height of the display, what's the width and height of the object,
what's the bounds of it, left, right, top, bottom, and then some simple math. So if our right is off of it, then we need to move our left enough over. If we're too far to the left, we set it just to be at the left. So moving from the right, we have to take the width of the window into account because we're setting the left side of the window. If it's above the top, we set it at the top. If it's below the bottom, we need to bring it up an amount, set the top plus the window to be that. So we have this, so we can just call on screen for an object. Nice. And we want to do this after we set the size. So we're going to just call on screen for wMain win parent. So nice not to have to write that code. So what happens when we do this? Well, we can see the window's near the edge here. So if we go ahead and start making it bigger, it is disappointing me. We were supposed to be calling on screen here. Let's take a look and see what's going on here. Did I get an error message? Oh, well, I am getting error messages, but for different reasons. So we're going to just set that so we stop getting an error message. All right. Okay, so let's make sure we are getting on-screen called. Calling on screen. Okay, we can see we're not calling on screen. Fantastic. Why not? Okay, we got a calling on screen that time. I probably just didn't save it. Not sure. Fantastic. There's two different versions of on screen. Why do we do these to ourselves? Okay, I'm doing a very poor man's version of comparing the contents of these two functions. They seem identical. On screen, as its own file, I'm not a fan of. But on screen as its own file in the libraries, I am a fan of. And so we're actually going to go ahead and take onscreen.lua, put it into libraries. I am sure I want to move it. Sure. Tell me, yeah, let's see what that does. Okay, we're going to come on into the main win, and that's going to be on screen, and that's going to be festival. Oh, that's funny. We're going to go ahead and do that. Libraries on screen. Great. On screen itself is going to then be in the library's namespace. That's fine. But we want to go ahead and get rid of it out of the general functions. So we're going to kill that. And put it in here instead. Cool. But we can do a function block here. Might as well. And this is going to be a commentary. A control or a
something with get width, get height, get left, get top, set position functions. I don't actually care that it's a control, but that is what we need it to do. Okay. Now, benefit is that now when we hover over on screen, we do get some handy dandy IntelliSense. What we don't have is an explanation for why there's two of them showing up. Find all references. Okay, so obviously calling it's not working yet. Let's put some debug text here. So just hoisting out those logics into their own variable declarations. Now we could go ahead and fill these in, but mostly I just want to get a sense of them. So turbine.shell.writeLine. So we're just going to go ahead and do this the easy, simple way. And take a look and see what those values are. Okay, the fact that we called on screen but didn't see all of that nonsense that I just wrote makes me concerned that we're still getting the wrong one. Like, did I save general functions? I did not. Great. Attempt to call global on screen. A nil value. That's actually what we want because we did need to come through and update those. So on screen, we need to find all references. Cool, because it's actually going to be libraries dot on screen, I think. Now, the simple thing to do is just copy a reference to this into the global namespace, and then we don't have to worry about it. That'll be my initial solution. Cool. Hey, let's go ahead and make this thing bigger. We can see it's saying false for everything. So what we can see is it's probably getting the basic size and not the enhanced size, the stretched window height. And so we would like a version of on-screen that knows about that. And so what we want to do is pass the stretch window width and stretch window height as optional parameters. So this is going to be stretch window width, stretch window height, and we're going to document these as int, wait, yeah, sure, integer, is it an integer? It's a number. And that's going to be optional stretch mode width. And we're going to do the same thing with the height. So if you don't pass them, it's not going to be a problem. Okay, so we have the width and we have the height. And so what we're going to say is that or that, and this or that. So if we have them, great. Otherwise, use the objects in place of it. Let's see if that breaks things. Great. Hooray. Now it's working. So what we can see is that if we place the window down there, as it's growing, it keeps getting slid over and up to compensate. And those calculations aren't super cheap, but as we can see, it doesn't look very laggy as we're doing it. And as it shrinks to the upper left. So and as it grows, it shrinks to the bottom and right. So I don't think you can get into a problem where you're shrinking off the screen. That is satisfying. Okay, cool. So we have an on-screen function that is working, and we're going to come back in here, and we're going to go ahead and get rid of the debug output, and then these local variables. It's very tempting to use these local variables in the logic. But I don't think it's necessary. The logic, it's straightforward enough. I guess I would annotate with the comments before I worried about that. Okay. Now, we're doing g dot on screen equals on screen. That is in place of explicitly saying libraries dot on screen, which is the other option. They're too big. Go away. Oh, we're still saying we're calling on screen. But right now, the Visual Studio Code extension doesn't understand what this means, even though LOTRO certainly does understand what that means. So we're the way the import is resolving things into namespaces. LOTRO knows this is going to work in LOTRO, but it's going to make squigglies happen. Oh, hey, someone just donated to the Extra Life campaign for Standing Stone Games. That's awesome. Well, I don't know if they're watching, but just in case they are, I'm going to do a flip. Woo! Neat. Cool. Thank you very much, Anonymous, for donating towards Extra Life, towards children's hospitals, and supporting Standing Stone Games' goal as well. That's really cool. Okay, so there's two solutions. Once you've nested a file into a subdirectory, anything that puts into the global namespace is going to be in a sub part of that global namespace. So what we're actually doing is, it's more complicated than this, but like g.libraries.onscreen exists, and everything's looking at G on screen. It's more complicated than that, of course, because all of our stuff is in a sub section of the global namespace. And putting it into the global is a little overkill for what we want. So my tendency is to prefer to call it out explicitly like this. And so we can do that pretty easily, actually. If we just stop putting it into the global namespace and reload, we're going to find each one of those places that doesn't like it. So sure would be nice if I could comment with the correct codes. Okay. So we have dance.lua 17. Okay. So come on in, line 17, on screen, libraries dot. All right, what's the next one? Main win 17. Awesome. Libraries dot. And minimized icon 41. And 39 for that matter. Now, the other thing we can just do is search for this exact spelling, this exact thing. Unfortunately, we're searching all of the plugins, not just some of the plugins. That makes it a little bit more complicated. But all right, so libraries. Oh, that's the import. Nice. All right. So this would be a way to resolve that as well. The thing is, you got to be very careful that you found them all, because if they're in the middle of a callback, you're not going to see the failure until you run that callback code, because that's when the resolution will fail. Okay, so find every place and decorate it with the namespace libraries dot, or just put the thing into the global namespace. I could see arguments for either way. And in this case, I would tend towards not doing the libraries dot everywhere, unless I had a good reason for it. So we're actually going to roll some of that back. So roll that back. Roll this one back. And that. And that. And main win here, we're going to go ahead and not do that. And instead, in the on-screen, we're going to go ahead and keep that namespace change. Awesome. Did I catch all the ones that I changed? Probably not. Awesome. Okay, so what did we want to do? We wanted, don't let slider get too big, done. Call an on-screen function after the window resize, done. Oh, that slider though, we want to make sure that it's working correctly. So let's go in and, how did that get so big? Let's pretend the screen height is like twice what it actually is. And make sure that screen slider also changes. Okay, so we can see that we did get basically twice the screen size. Now we can also see when we get too big for this, we start having a little war, because the first one will shove it down, and then the second check will shove it up. You know, the first check will shove it left, the second check will shove it right. But with the correct logic of not letting the slider let it get too big in the first place, it won't matter. Awesome. Okay, so what do we have? Call on screen to make sure the window stays on the screen as it's getting bigger. And finally, detect resolution change, deal with it. Okay, that's a second part of this. Third part, really. All right, I know Thurlor has mentioned that. I wonder if I can find it. I'm going to load up Discord for a second, see if it was mentioned in a recent enough thing that I can find it, because it'd be convenient not to have to reinvent the wheel on that. Okay. Resolution. Well, fantastic. This came up in the search, but it is not related. Use a bug in set stretch mode to detect screen size changes. There's no other way to detect it that I know of. Fantastic. Let's take a look at this. Okay. Did you elaborate on that further, Laura? Well, hey, Mechchilla Kosman has also donated money towards the Extra Life fundraiser. Thank you so much. That's mighty spiffing of you. I'm going to go ahead and do another Hobbit flip. Awesome. Thank you so much. I think I get to hear it both through my streaming software and through my desktop, where I have it open, so I get to hear it like 2 times. Okay. Okay, we'd really like that to get changed. Okay. So, what can we deduce from this thing? And can we find anything on Google with those refined search terms? No, people talking about changing it, but not from a plugin perspective. Well, that's okay. We'll just reinvent the wheel as far as that goes. Okay, so set stretch mode. Let's figure out what we're talking about for that. Bye-bye, buff window. Okay, so we are already using set stretch mode now. Set stretch mode. So, what do these do? And my goodness, let's see if we can enable word wrap for a minute. Set stretch mode 0 turns off scaling of a control, and incidentally sets the alpha to 0. Any background image will be cropped or tiled. This is the only setting where the image will be properly bounded by a parent control, which is a good thing to note. Stretch mode 1, scale an image based on its size it had when the stretch mode was assigned to its current size. When using stretch mode 1, it is important to set the control to the image's original size before assigning stretch mode 1. It can cause an image to exceed the bounds of its parent if it happens the control will only respond to mouse events within the bounds of the parent. Fantastic. Scale the control to the size of the background image, stretch mode 2. The control will resize to fit the image size. And the background will be subsequently stretched to fit if you resize it. Okay. And the control will not respond to any mouse events. Fantastic. Stretch mode 3. Background image will be tiled or cropped, but the image will not be properly cropped for the parent's bounds. And 4. Control will not receive mouse events even if mouse visibility is set to true. Okay, so what we want to know is something being given a control resized message? Because I think that's probably what we're talking about here. So let's go ahead and pull that up in the API documentation. So control. What we're looking for is the size changed event, probably. So let's make a control looking for that. And we're going to do that in probably just main here. It's a very particular thing. So we're going to look for resolution change detector equals turbine.ui.control. And we're going to go ahead and say the size changed equals a anonymous function, takes centers and args, and turbine.shell.writeLine okay. So we're going to assume that will fix nothing. And we're also going to assume that I have a way to change my resolution. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so in options, if we go ahead and change from full screen windowed to windowed,
and then stretch that back out. We have an easy way to change the resolution by simply dragging the corner here. Okay, awesome. That's going to freak my game out. So we can go ahead and close the options now. We're done with that. And what we're not seeing is any sort of a callback. Okay, I gotta check to see what the heck is going on with this error. Okay, maze map win 183. Okay. So we have an easy way to trigger a resize, and what we want to do is start checking the stretch modes. So resolution, change detector, set stretch mode to 1. Okay. And the other thing we need to do is to set its size before and after so that it actually is stretched. Set size 50 by 50, set the stretch mode, set size 100 by 100. So we know that its displayed size would be different. You know what? We're going to make that a window just to make sure. Okay, so we got a size change. Awesome. We're not seeing it here though. Okay, let's try the next stretch mode. We get the initial one. Awesome. Nope. Now it's entirely possible we would need an actual background in here to trigger this behavior. Or it's entirely possible that I misunderstand what the problem is. Let's set a background. We have images. Let's go ahead and set one of them. Okay, and we know that thing was actually 32 by 32, so we'll just properly size that and set that to 64 by 64. Okay, well we got two size changed, but we're not seeing another one. Maybe Torque says, hello, hello. We're trying to figure out how to detect a screen resolution change. Wait, there might be an easier way to do this. Well, let's go ahead and finish the testing of the current one before we get too distracted. All right.
Okay. So the naive theory. What on earth? Nice map win 184. Oh, of course. Of course. Now I understand. If that, then int. All sorts of bug fixes. Okay, so on the face of it, that did not tell us how to do that. Was there anything else? Any other clues that I have? Well, Thurlor says he did that, so let's take a look at some LOTRO interface plugins that Thurlor worked on and see if that doesn't help us. Sure, I'll log in. That won't work. Okay, so reminders, list Thurlor's interfaces, awesome. Which one of these would care about screen size changes? Maybe most of them. We're going to look at buff monitor and sequence bars as two of the most likely ones. Okay, so we have sequence bars. We're going to go ahead and extract that. Not Visual Studio. I meant Visual Studio Code. For one thing, see how much faster it is to load the one over the other. Okay. Sequence bars. We have common. I should be searching, but I am curious what else is in here, so I'm getting distracted. There's a lot of helper functions. Very cool. I'm almost at the bottom anyway. Okay, nothing obvious in there. And so we're going to go ahead and download the other one and see if it made it into there as well. So, extract all. All right, open that folder. And let's take a look. So we also have utils in here. We have UI in here. Resize handle. Neat. So this is a window. Does this tell us? This might actually just be something attached to a regular window to just put all that basic ability in there. That's interesting. Maybe Dork says, are you a programmer in real life or just work on LOTRO add-ons for a hobby, if you don't mind me asking? I don't mind. I do coding in the real world for my work, but I don't work in Lua, except in working on LOTRO plugins. And the version of Lua that we're working in is a sandbox version of Lua that's running under Lord of the Rings Online. And so there are some bugs in this in how this Lua works, and there are some lack of features in how this Lua works that sometimes makes what feels like it should be a simple thing a little bit more challenging. And the task right now, being told when the resolution, the size of the game window changes, is possible to do, we have been told, but only by exploiting a bug in the implementation of set stretch mode. And so kind of figuring out what that is and how it works is a bit of a challenge. Maybe more of a challenge than it would be in my day job when I don't have such constrictions. All that to say, yes, but I work differently than this. But that's a good point. We should be looking for set stretch mode. Hey, display size listener. Awesome. Add the turbine.ui.display.size changed event. Let's take a look at that. That's the right thing. Okay, so it is a window. Oh, it's visible for one thing. And its size is 1.1. Wants updates. It wants updates a lot. And okay. Okay, it just wants updates in order to change its size. Okay. Well, this is all fascinating. Well, I gotta say, I'm curious what that does. So let's go ahead and hoist that on out and put that in here. Okay, so that's going to do callbacks, it says. Unfortunately, we don't have a do callbacks yet. So let's just hoist that out for a second so we can understand better what this is doing. really interested in is knowing that this happened. Screen size change, exclamation point. So let's go ahead and load this up first of all. Hey, look, we have a screen size changed. Hey, and Arturs Gulbis has donated money towards Extra Life for children's hospitals. That's really awesome. I'm glad people are still doing that. Probably not directly related to this stream, but you never know. Awesome. I will do flips for anyone, even if they're not here. Okay, so what is going on under the covers? I'm not entirely sure, but we can see in the first update handler that we assign the update and size change functions to these custom functions. We don't do that right away. We do it in the first update handler. Presumably, it's important to wait. So we set a size to 1, then we set the sizes to 2. Okay. And then we say we don't want any more updates. But we do say our update and size change functions are now doing something else. So this function doesn't exist anymore. Instead, what we have is this one. So if update is called again, we turn ourselves back off. But we do call size change. So apparently, Windows get an update call when the resolution changes. Fascinating. At least they do if they have stretch mode set to 1. Now, I gotta ask, what happens if we turn stretch mode to 0? And then resize the screen. Doesn't work. But set it back to 1 and resize, and it works. So in stretch mode 1, the update function is called, and you can see why you would want to do this on a sacrificial object, because you are trashing its update and size change functions, which you might actually want to use on a real thing that you're using. But you make a sacrificial window that is technically visible but has a tiny size, so you're not going to see it. I wonder if we hide its visibility anywhere. I don't see that. Okay, so when our update is called, cool, and then size changed, we are, if the size is changed, then set it back to 2. Okay, I gotta know if that's also getting called. So let's go ahead and spit that out as well. Okay, so maybe it's not, we're getting called update, we're getting called with the size changed, and then we're calling update because we need to wait for some reason. Excuse me. Reverse engineering something that works because of possible bugs is always awesome. Okay, so we can see we get a size changed, possibly more than one. So we get at least one size changed. And then in that size changed, if that's greater than 0, if ignore it is greater than 0, and when is it ever? It is, if it's greater than 0, then we decrement it and we return. Okay. Otherwise, we set the size and we ignore the size change event, because we don't want to get into I assume we don't want to get into a recursive situation. And so we call set size and then we ignore the subsequent size changed. Okay. Let's go ahead and get this in here. Oh, can't do that. It's self dot. I was even trying to tell me with the squiggly line. Okay, so we get 0, and then so we set it to 1. I'm really not sure why we set it after we call set size. It feels like that would be weird. But then we go ahead and we set wants updates to true. That's going to trigger this replacement update function, which it did. And we turn off the want updates, and that's when we call size change on turbine.ui display. So this is rolling our own version of turbine.ui display.size changed, which otherwise we don't have. Fantastic. Thanks, Thurlor. Okay, so that's turbine.ui.display. And we can see there's no callbacks here. There's nothing built in to give you that information. Okay. So I would say this can go into a size changed, display size listener really, but something. So let's go into turbine UI display size changed. That sounds wrong. Display size listener.lua is fine. And we're going to go ahead and pull that in. Now, this depends on, okay, what do you want? Global variable in lowercase. Fair enough. What else? Geez, so use dash 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 at class. Why did our quick faces only ignore? Just show me how to do it. Oh well. Tell me more. Fields cannot be injected. I mean, obviously it can. Where do you define it? Yes. Yes, please. Tell me more. All right, so this is an annotation for Lua. And I would like to know more. Define a class can be used without field to define a table structure. Okay, give me an example. Sure. Class inheritance. Okay. What do you think about that? Yeah, that just kind of fixes everything. All right, cool. Neat. So it knows that I'm trying to subclass the window and lets me do all the things without complaint. All right. Good to know. Okay, so we have this. Now what we don't have is the do callbacks function. Now do callbacks is a common way to handle multiple dispatch. So if multiple people want to know about the display update, normally you would just have a single callback function assigned to this thing. In this case, turbine.ui display size changed. And instead we want to be able to say, hey,
If it's a function, then just call the function. But if it's a table, a list of functions or a table of functions, then we want to go ahead and iterate through them. So in this case, we check to see if anything's left, and if so, or if not, we go ahead and kill it, and otherwise we go ahead and do stuff. Now the thing is, I'm a little concerned about just placing that in the global here, but we can go take a look at Lord of the Rings Online plugins Turbine and see what their event.lua looks like. I wish more people used these provided things, or I wish I knew why they didn't. And I hope it's not because they don't work. But the Turbine files contain multiple dispatch functionality, but it's just different enough that I don't feel like I have the mental energy to go dig into it right now and figure out what's up with this. So instead, we're just going to go ahead and hoist this function in here. Okay. And then we should give credit where credit is due. So this is do callbacks and display size listener. And this is utils 13.lua and whatever this was. Okay. Thanks, Thuralor. Okay, so we're calling do callbacks here, but we're just going to go ahead and keep it local for right now. This is a really useful a generic function that lots of plugins will use, and it's the kind of thing that you should definitely have it in your libraries and use it instead of just assuming single dispatch, because this includes the case where you have single dispatch, you've just assigned a function to that event to call back, but it also allows you to have a add callback and remove callback. And in fact, we could make use of those, but we don't need to. It's going to work either way, because we're going to go ahead and just hook into this with, again, just a single dispatch model. So we're going to come on into main win just for the heck of it. And we're going to go ahead and say turbine.ui.display.what size changed equals function, and it's not passing anything. And we can go ahead and say, it says, nope, same thing, doesn't matter. And we can say turbine.shell.write.writeLine display.size change. In fact, I'm just going to take the whole thing. Cool. Okay. So that did not work. Brady Man says, well, what is this plugin for? Well, we're working on the Festival Buddy plugin. And what we got distracted with today, I think Bims was in chat was asking for this, or asking about this, is the Festival Buddy window is a fixed size, just like this. And so what that means is if you are on a larger monitor, instead of a 1K monitor like I have, maybe you have a 2K or a 4K monitor, you
are going to see this look visually, like number of centimeters on your screen, smaller because it takes the same number of pixels and you have more pixels packed into that screen. So the question was, how can we make the windows scale up? Oh, that's cool. This part worked. Yeah, how can we make the window scale up, scalable? And the answer is it's kind of a per window solution. You can do it. You can do this scaling, but you have to give a lot of thought of how it's going to work for you. And one of the questions was, what happens if you change the resolution straight up? And actually, the answer is apparently this thing resets. So if we unload that and reload that, yeah, it definitely looked like it reset the size there. So if we go ahead and max that out and change the window, we're going to want to know about that because we're going to want to reapply that stretching. That's why we would care about this. Okay. And we would also want to update the mins and maxes for the scaling bar. Here we're stuck at 1.8 even though we have more vertical space now. So what is the plugin for? Well, the plugin is to help you with festivals, and what we're dealing with today is how to make it resizable in some manner. And in this case, it's resizable in a visual scaling, not in a grabbing the corner and dragging it. And actually, the reason we're doing this is because fonts are harder in LOTRO plugins than they might be in some other ecosystems. And so the question was, oh, can you just resize the window and then redraw with bigger fonts as you go? But there's a fixed number of fonts that we have access to within. And let's see, that's probably under turbine.ui.lotro. Font. Awesome. So there's a fixed number of fonts. So if you need something larger than Trajan Pro 28 or Trajan Pro Bold 36, if you're like, oh, I'd really love a 48, well, that may not be available to you as a plugin author. And so short of rolling your own fonts by having images for each of the letters at each of the sizes, doing it in a stretching of the control like this means that LOTRO is giving you bigger text kind of for free. Now, eventually that's going to get pixelated, it's going to get distorted, but for right now, it gives you a pretty good rendering of it at reasonable scaling. Hopefully that makes sense. And unfortunately, the do callbacks did not work here. So what we want to do is consider, okay, how about we do it the way this recommends? So hoist in. I didn't actually include this function. No wonder it's not working. Sorry, this file. So we need to come into main and make sure we actually include this. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Okay, that's too big. Okay, we get it. Turbine.ui.display.size change was fired. Now, why is this important? Well, we need this to redraw. So we can actually make use of that. In main win here, we can go ahead and do the same thing. Main win redraw. Now we actually probably want to take advantage of the multiple dispatch option because we want in options, we want to recalculate these mins and maxes also. But just starting with this, we're going to go ahead and be at 1.4 here. And we can see the window is just slightly getting smaller, and that's lovely. So if we go ahead and shrink this, or make it as big as it can go, first of all. So if we go ahead and make it about 1.5, we can see it's coming down to almost the middle of this chat window. So resize, and we can see, well, I'm glad I have saved my UI layout, but we can see proportionally of the window, it's about 2/3 there. Oh, because we're based off of the width, the whole thing is assuming the width is the important thing. Like I said, that might come back to haunt us, but I'm going to run with it for right now because we're still detecting the size changed. But the way we're storing proportionality is subject to inaccuracies if you resize your window but you don't keep it proportional to that 1920 by 1080 resolution. Okay, well, let's come on in and grab add and remove callback. And again, these are not unique to Thurlore. They've been around in the community for quite a while, but they are coming from Thurlore. You know what? Let's go ahead. Okay. Add callback, remove callback, do callbacks, and display listener. Borrowed from utils 13. Distributed with sequencers. Thanks, Thurlore. Okay. So, to use that, object event callback. Cool. We want to come into main win, and we want to instead do turbine UI display as the object, size changed as the event, and the callback is this function. There we go. Okay, and we can verify that that works by seeing the window is shrinking vertically as we lose width. Yes. Perfect. But that means we can also do the same thing in options. In our draw main window scrolling, we need to have a callback in here that allows us to recalculate. I mean, a lot of this actually. We need to recalculate the max scale. Recalculate max scale, and that might actually be enough because we're storing the percentages. So where do we use setting main width? Okay, so that's that. So the actual width is being used for okay. Scaled width is the actual width divided by the default width. But that should be, yeah, maybe it's just the recalculate the max scale at this point. We're going to set that as a to-do because we're rapidly running up against the end of this stream. So while we kind of dial into the last couple of things here, if you have any last minute questions, comments, or concerns, now is a great time to get them into stream chat. Okay, so we want to be able to update stuff here as well. And the max scale here is a pretty simple one. We could actually so much of this. Bims says, great stream. Thanks. Quick question. Is there a way to direct code shell output to a certain user channel? No. Plugins, when they do something like turbine.shell.writeline, will always go to the standard chat channel. But you can change the color of it, so it doesn't have to be the normal assigned color for standard.
if you make an error happen, say try to divide by zero, dereference a null pointer, that kind of thing, then that will always go to the error channel. And so those are the two channels that you can intentionally cause something to go to. And that doesn't stop you from detecting chat in any of those channels. Plugins have access to read all messages in all channels, but you can only write to standard. But you can write to it in whatever color you want. Now what you can do, and I've seen this done before, is you can create your own chat window that lets you, that you put your stuff into. So you could just put your own window here that looks like a chat window, and you can write whatever channels you want to there, but it won't be the real chat window, right? You'd have to do that all yourself, and you'd also miss some features like the ability to target someone who says something. Because their name is in green, so it's not just a name; it's a targetable. You click the link and it selects that NPC or that whatever. You wouldn't get that necessarily. So yeah, you can't output to arbitrary channels, but you could make a plugin that seemed like it was doing that. Cool. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and say options, full screen windowed. I'm not convinced that gave me a size changed. Fascinating. Let's put a pin in that. Detecting resolution detection. Change. Oh, maybe I actually took out the does it also detect changing from windowed to full screen windowed. Okay. Agatha says, Bim says, yep, makes sense. Was thinking of like a debug window that was only that. Agatha says, another thing that can be done, format up an alias, stick it in a quick slot so it sends a message to a chat channel when the user clicks on the quick slot. That's a great point. A plugin can't by itself send messages, but you can fake it out in other ways. So let's go ahead and load up the deed tracker here. And let's, of course, have completed a deed. Oh, my goodness. All right, we need that in globals. Just a moment. Deed tracker globals. Okay, so in the deed tracker plugin, when you complete a deed, you have the option to announce that. So Slayer of Breeland. Cool. So in this window, and you may have seen this if you use the deed tracker window, you get a little chat bubble here. And if you hover over it, it will tell you that that chat bubble, on top of that is a hidden alias that if you click on it, will do a /f fellowship message, because we've chosen the fellowship. And if you want to send it to somewhere else, the handler for this dropdown, let's say I want to send it to kinship, the handler for this dropdown goes to every instance of this bubble and edits the alias that is sitting on top of those bubbles to say, no, you're actually going /k or /ra or /say or whatever. So when you click this, and let's go ahead and change that to say, which again updates this thing. The alias is /say whatever. And so I, the user, by clicking on something, have sent a message to a specific channel. So you, as a plugin author, you can technically have the user click something to send messages to any channel by doing an alias. But what you can't do is the equivalent of a turbine.shell.writeLine and specify a chat channel. That is right out. So depending on your use case, the answer might very well be yes, you can send to arbitrary channels. So there are plugins out there that will
I think there are plugins that will let you colorize your text and format it in ways that you just can't do in the chat, and then you hit send. And so in that sense, yeah, you can send it to whatever message to whatever channel you want. But if you're trying to send diagnostic messages out to user chat 1, no, not without a user clicking on it. But great point, Egg Arthur. Plugin authors do have some tricks up their sleeves for chat. Oh boy, I completed the White Slayer Advanced. I didn't. Well, not recently. Awesome. Great addition. Okay. So we want to make sure we detect changing from window to full screen. Probably I just deleted the output message, but it would be good to know. Okay. What else? That was it. Detect resolution change. Deal with it. Options window needs to update. That's really more of a feature than a bug. Okay. Fantastic. Well, I think that's going to be it for tonight. I'm super excited to get some of these features in here. Thanks so much for bringing up resizing window scaling. I think that was Bims in chat for suggesting that. It's been a thing that I wanted to bring over to the Festival Buddy plugin anyway. Since we're between festivals right now, now's a great time to smash those parts together until they work the way we want them to. But as we saw, they answer the question, how easy it is to do this. Well, it's kind of formulaic, but it's a per window solution, that scaling option. And you could possibly have issues if you wanted the window to resize normal. Like if you clicked on a corner and drag it, it might be possible to replicate this by putting your own window on top of that section of the window, and that's the thing that they're clicking and dragging, they just don't realize it, and then that tells your window to rescale. I think that'd be really interesting to play around with. In fact, I gotta make a note. Rescaling. Can we put our own hidden window on top of the bottom right resize thumb and rescale the window according proportionally? I think it would be a really interesting thing because it'd be much more user-friendly if you could just click and drag this thing and it will feel like a resize, but it'll actually be a rescale. Now the downside of that is that rescaling, you've always got that proportionality between width and height. So the window wouldn't really follow the mouse cursor, but it would follow but you could make choices about, we have moved diagonally and therefore we can scale in that direction. That's a really interesting idea. I'm interested to try that because I feel like it should be possible. Like if you just put a transparent window that accepts mouse smack dab on top of that, then you're in control. Maybe. Okay. That's a really neat idea, Bims. Thanks. Or wherever it came from. Little Redhead says, next time, Yule stuff into Festival Buddy. You be quiet. Yule's not for several weeks. Actually, I don't even know when. Hang on. When is Yule? LOTRO event calendar. Alright, where are we? Okay, so we are on around here. Legendary item caps are going up. Virtue tier increases. Fantastic. Forester crafting event returns in a couple of days. I still need to get in there and try it out. Oh, your legendary item reward tracks. Remember that ends in 1 week. So if you haven't gotten it to where you want it to go to, please do. It'd be a shame to have to wait until whatever rewards come back. We've got a buried treasure in between now and then. We do have a Hobnanigans. A Treebeard's level cap goes up, and then approximately the 6th, and then on the 7th we have Yule. So it's entirely possible we'll be mixing both of those together. So Yule is 1 month from now, so plenty of time to finish Harvestmath before we get into Yule stuff. Fantastic. Plenty of time, I say. I hope. Awesome. Okay. Well, that being said, that is everything we are going to cover today. I believe the next stream on the schedule is Adventuring Back to Rohan with Mailung at 9 p.m. server time, which is something like 5 hours from now. Check your local clock. And Maybe Torque says, thanks for streaming. That was very interesting. Ben was great stuff. You got all that done in one stream. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins, and in this case, the rescaling aspect of it. I hope to see you all here next week. I'll be back, same channel, same time, and until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.